We'll just take 5 more minutes so that we can wait for people who are joining. So please allow me to start it at 5 p.m.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Not audible. I can't hear what you say.
Yeah, audible, ma'am. You are on mute, Joyce, ma'am.
Yeah. Now my mic is on. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely
I
fine.
can't hear you, but I can't hear him.
Yeah, you are audible, ma'am.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Hello.
Okay.
Yes, you are audible. We'll just wait for 2 more minutes and we'll start sharp at 6:05.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, absolutely fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone, my esteemed speakers, colleagues, and dear students. It is both a privilege and a moral responsibility for us as academicians to
stand beside our young students as they navigate one of the most crucial phases of their academic journey, their board exams. Education is not just about imparting knowledge, it is about mentorship, about guidance, and most importantly, about ensuring that no student feels alone in their pursuit of success. At Vinayaka Mission School of Economics and Public Policy, we believe that learning extends beyond textbooks and classrooms. Our Idea to Impact series, the Vidmahe essay competition, and other transformative initiatives focus on nurturing critical thinking, interdisciplinary learning, and real world problem solving. Through these platforms, we strive to bridge the gap between theory and practice, empowering students to engage with contemporary challenges beyond conventional academics. Of course, the pressure of exams are immense. Of course, we do understand that. And we believe that timely guidance from the right people can make all the difference. Winners don't do different things, but they do things differently. And if you have the right guidance at the right time, definitely you will succeed. That is why we have gathered here today with some of the brightest minds in the country, leaders in education who have shaped countless success stories, some well known, some unsung, but important is all are significant. So we are deeply grateful to our distinguished speakers. We'll shortly introduce them through a small video. Our esteemed speakers, despite their demanding schedules, have graciously agreed to participate in this social initiative. Their presence here today reflects their unwavering commitment to student success and their belief in the power of mentorship. Each of our speakers will have around 7 minutes to share their invaluable insights, tips, strategies, and wisdom that go beyond the textbooks, preparing students not only for their exams but for life beyond school. After their addresses, we'll open the floor for a focused question and answer session, ensuring that every student gets the answer they seek. Let us make this session a beacon of support and encouragement for all the young minds present here. Once again, a warm welcome to everyone and a heartfelt thank you to our esteemed speakers for being a part of this meaningful initiative. I would request my colleague, Dr. Tina, to kindly play the video and introduce the speakers. Can you play the sound? So we have Anushwa Pal from the Adamus International School. We have with us Mo Banerjee, Vice Principal from the Bhavanipur Educational Society School. Mrs. Jais Matthew, Principal of the Advaita International School, Tirupur. Shafina Aziz, Principal of Sun Academy, Chennai. Deepa Menon, Principal, GD Public School, Coimbatore. And Padmaja Mani, Principal, Shraddha Children's Academy, Chennai. So, without any further delay, I would request uh, our speakers to kindly address the session. So, can we start uh, with Mo, ma'am?
Okay. A very good evening to all my colleagues. As Sir had said, it's not only before I begin, because we do not have much time. I would want to know how many students we have here and from what boards? Is it possible to quickly, um, is it possible, sir, for us to,
Yeah, sure. I mean, of course, I think as far as I understand, we have most of the students from CBSE board and a few from ICSE boards.
from ISC, right? Okay, so when I was told that this is for us to give a few last minute suggestions, I thought that at this point of time, we would have to focus on how to deal with the question paper. I have personally I still am a teacher in English, and having taught classes 10, 11, and 12 for the last 25 years, and having corrected ISE papers also, I feel that there are a few very important things that the students must be told at this point of time. Okay. So, in the 6 minutes that I have left now, I would want to guide you. And if it's possible, I can post these in the chat also if the students would want to take these last minute technical suggestions down, a kind of orientation, conducting yourself as you are answering the English language paper and the English literature paper. Uh, I'll talk about the language paper first. I would suggest this is for the ISC students because the CBSE students fortunately have only descriptive. I'll start with the composition, have only descriptive compositions, descriptive paragraphs. So that is where they are at an advantage over the ISC students who will have to choose from six different kinds of compositions. I would advise you to go for the descriptive or the narrative composition. The argumentative, the discursive, the short story, the reflective, these are, if you are not into the practice, obviously, those who are very good writers, write essays regularly, they are open to the choice. But mostly, what I have seen is that more than 60% of the students they do not write very many essays either in school, or they write it for school examinations, for class tests, or for essay competitions like VSEP had conducted. Maybe when we have the elimination rounds, then we need them to write. But they, they can be counted on our fingers, the number of essays that they write across 11 and 12, given the kind of syllabi pressure they have. So it is best to go for the descriptive and the narrative essays because they are scoring. When you are dealing with the grammar portion, whether it be CBSE or ISC, I would advise you not to break the chronological order of the subparts to the questions. Because in a hurry, when you are, this is after all a foreign language for us, you have the pressure of the examination and the stress of it. So you forget to number your answers, wherein you may lose out on marks. So when you are doing the grammar portion, I would advise you to follow the chronological um, order. And if the answer is not coming to your mind at that point of time, write the answer number, leave space, move on to the next. Later, when you have time to think and the answer comes to you, you can come back and write it. But do not break the order. Third, we come to the comprehension part of it. In the comprehension, I would advise you not to lift the exact language that is there in the passage as you are writing your answers. However, if you feel that you are not being able to construct a simple answer, then you can lift. You may lose, I may or may not lose a little mark for lifting if it is there at all, but then that is at least better than not writing the answer at all. The ISC students, please write your summary in a grid. Okay, the question would be, write the answer in the form of a connected passage. Do not misunderstand that. The connected passage does not mean a continuous paragraph. You have to write that paragraph in the within the grid with one word inside a block. uh, I would also advise you always, this is both for the CBSE and the ISC students, to attempt or to write the comprehension first, because you have the reading time and you always need to read the comprehension at least twice. So if you read the question paper during the reading time and then do something else and then come back to the comprehension, you'll have to reread it. So you are wasting your reading time within the writing time. But if you read the comprehension carefully and then start with that, then you have it all in your mind and you do not have to waste any time. Sir, I think I've wasted my, I'm done with the 7 minutes that have been allotted to me. Um, I'll come back to them in the question answer session. I would want the other speakers to go ahead with.
Thank you, ma'am. No, nothing is wastage. I mean, as
Yeah,
we treat this as
yeah,
investments.
absolutely. Yes.
So, allow me to request the next speaker. Who would like to go next? I do not really go by any hierarchy kind of thing. So, can I request Padmaja ma'am to kindly address the session? Thanks, ma'am.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am.
So, like the previous principal said, I'm not going to give you any tips on how to write the exam. This is going to be very, very general. I've been in the field of education for the past 25 years. I started as a pre primary teacher and I've taught all grades and all subjects till grade 12. So, I know that all of us are getting closer to our board exams, and many of us, will be having a mixed feeling of emotions. You might feel a lot of stress, you might feel a lot of anxiety, you will feel excitement, and you will also get the feeling of, oh my god, when am I going to finish my exams and get over this, right? But let me tell you, all this is completely normal, which each one of us will go through. And I'm sure all of us have spent years preparing for this moment. And now it's time to put our best foot forward, right? So let's all take a deep breath and remind ourselves that this is just an exam and it's not a battle. Okay? It's not here to define who we are, but it is just to showcase how much we have learned and how well we can apply our knowledge. Okay? Please keep this in mind for whatever exams you might be taking up in the future. Over the past few months, I'm sure all of you would have worked very hard. You would have attended scores of tests. You would have attended a lot of classes, taken notes, you would have written tests and revised multiple number of times. Now, in these final days, we have what about, I think, 15 days for our exams. Our focus should be more on smart revision. We should practice, we should maintain a positive mindset, and all of these should be consistent, right? So, I just have a few things that I think will help you prepare better. I think you need to have a plan. I just want you to give me 1 minute. I'm sorry for that. So I think all of you need to have a plan. If you don't have a plan already, I'm sure you all do. But in case you are, looking at things in the last minute, you've just woken up and you want to give your best, instead of studying everything at once, right? I'm sure you know what is the high weightage topics and the concepts that you find challenging, right? So you have to start creating a schedule. So I'm going to study from this time to this time, right? I'm going to start studying from 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to study till 7 o'clock, right? Nothing is going to distract me during this time. So I have checklisted. Have a clean schedule and try to balance all your subjects. Okay. And while you're learning, please practice. There is a difference between practice and reading, right? When I say practice, read a paragraph, read a paragraph, okay? Make a mind map, probably a graphic organizer, whatever you think you are good at. Maybe just make bullet points, do a diagram, an illustration, a web chart, whatever. But put your paper and pen together, okay? That will really give you a lot of clarity. You see, when you're reading, it's all like a puzzle in your head, right? So, what I want you to do is try to take out all these threads one by one, make sure everything is separate. For this to happen, I seriously believe in writing down everything, right? Start solving the previous year's papers and time yourself. This will definitely help with your speed, accuracy, and your time management. Okay. Most important, stay healthy, take breaks. So you've started studying from 5 to 7. Give yourself a break from 7 to 8. It's okay. Don't do anything. Just go outside, play. Okay. Don't take your gadget out for any reason. Nothing in the gadget. No talking to your friends. Keep away from social media. You know, that's social media is called as a brain drain. It actually drains your brain out of all it, right? So don't do that. Don't, skip meals. I'm sure you all get very stressed and tensed and all that. Don't eat too much and don't skip meals. Have proper rest, have a lot of hydration. And something that I find is very very helpful is just closing your eyes for even 1 minute, right? You'll feel so rejuvenated. Just put your mind to rest. This is very 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 important. Stay away from panic and negativity. Don't compare what your friends are doing. Just do what you are doing, right? Everybody have their own way of studying and learning, okay? So don't say, oh, that person is studying late into the night, let me also do that. No, if you are okay with studying in the morning, you go ahead and study in the morning, right? So don't compare yourself with anybody. Stay calm, trust your efforts, and believe in yourself. I'm sure all of you can do it. On the day of the exam, right? When you look at the question paper, please read the questions properly. This is where a lot of us students make a mistake, right? They just read the first part of the question and then they assume that they've read the entire question and answer only one part. This is a major mistake that you're making. You are given enough time as a reading time. So go through your question paper very, very carefully, manage your time well, and answer with clarity. Wherever you can, please underline. Okay, underline. Let your answers be neat. Remember, the evaluator who is evaluating your paper, right? She needs to see neat handwriting and clarity there. Suppose you get stuck, move on, like ma'am just said, and come back later, right? All the best. This is just one milestone in your journey. Remember, marks are very, very important, but they do not define our intelligence or our potential. What truly matters is the effort that we put in, the lessons that we learn, and how we actually use them in our real life, right? So let's give it our best shot, not because of the pressure, but because we want to give it our best shot, right? Believe in your hard work, stay positive, and definitely success will follow. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Padmaja ma'am. It was really nice about time management. I was recollecting my own school days. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. So, may I request Anusha ma'am to address the gathering? Anusha ma'am is the principal of Adamas International School, Kolkata.
Good evening, everybody. Um, as educators, we resonate with each other. So, primarily, we agree to whatever one has to say about this. So, just to take on from whatever my earlier speakers have pointed out, I would just like to say a few things in general and then get into my subject, which is economics. Regarding the general things, as Padmaja ma'am was just talking about, I would just like to add that, as she said, a routine is important, and breaking up your tasks and taking breaks is important. I would like to just suggest that when you are making your routine, make it realistic. Do not try to set goals which are unrealistic. If you haven't slept for 6 to 7 hours in the night, you cannot wake up in the morning. So it's pointless making a routine which starts at 5 a.m. when you know you've gone to sleep at 1 a.m. So be realistic in the goals that you set, because the aim is to achieve the goal. If I've decided to study for 5 hours, I will study for 5 hours. So let's be realistic about it. Second point that I would like to add is that the first thing, maybe in the morning when you get up, if you're not a morning person, it's a bad time. But if you are a morning person, that's your best time. But I feel that, the first task of the day, if you can get done with one or two of the ugliest frogs that you have, then you get motivated and you feel good about it for the rest of the day. So if you have two particular subjects or one particular chapter in a subject which is bothering you, if you decide to attack it in the morning, first task, let me get that done. What happens is you feel good that you've been able to get that done, because even if you don't get it done, it'll be a nagging pain like a toothache all the time. It's there in your brain that no, that's something that will take time, but I haven't yet done it. So it's good to give it a shot and get that done. And as a reward to yourself for having got that done, you can take a break. And yes, as ma'am said, that the breaks are very important. I would like to add over here that, when you take these breaks, as ma'am has already said, do not speak to your friends, do not get onto social media, do not do things which distract you. But something which is also, I find very, very useful is to think about what you have studied. So it is a break. You don't have a book open, you're not writing anything. Even if you're listening to some music, in your head, if you can keep rolling what you have studied, try and see what you studied yesterday night. Is it coming back to your mind? So, that's a very, very good way of trying to ensure that the learning is staying with you. If it is not, there's nothing to get worried about. You can just flip over the pages, and the next time you'll remember it better. So, that was another thing I wanted to say. And the third point before I get on to economics is that, yes, of course, paper practice is important. You will all must have already done it, or you are constantly looking at the papers. But I would also want you to look at the mistakes that you are making. It is very important as a student to be, very like at this stage, there's nobody telling you, or even if your teachers are telling you, the ones who will do well are the ones who are accepting their mistakes and trying to find out their mistakes, rather than seeing, okay, fine, this I know. But if you don't know something, revisit it. You can keep a log of that. You can select the time of the day that you want to revisit it, but do revisit it and analyze those mistakes. That will give you that, that stepping stone where you will be improving upon your preparation. Coming to economics, which I've been teaching for the last almost 30 years now, there are a few general things which I'm sure all your teachers must have told you. But just to go over it, as I always say, every subject has a language of its own. So, yes, we are all writing the exams in English, but economics has a language of its own. By that, I mean key words, key concepts. These are very important. So make sure that you are able to incorporate these keywords. You are able to remember it, because all students may not be equally comfortable in writing English. So many of them do some form of rote learning also. But remember these keywords, they need to feature in your answers. And as both ICISC and CBSC, both the curriculums now have are laying a lot of stress on application. So these application questions are the ones that you should focus on now. So if you've studied a particular chapter, there are certain questions which are direct. So you've learned the definitions, you've learned the theories, you know the assumptions, you know the formula, you know the limitations, the exceptions. Those are direct. But when it comes to the application, my suggestion would be try and keep a time of the day when you look at those questions. Or when you've studied the chapter towards the end, keep a time to specifically focus on the application. It's not very, very difficult. It is not, because students, you have to understand that the content of the chapter cannot be different. So, whatever the application question is, it's just tweaked a little. You just have to understand what they are trying to get at. So that, again, reading the question, understanding the question, and in an exam scenario where you are pressurized, you're pressed for time, and you're feeling nervous and anxious, your brain might not really work so logically. So the brain needs training, and that training happens now. The more you look at these application questions, you are trained that, okay, if it's worded like this, then this is what they are asking for. So that's something I would definitely suggest you do. Numericals are also now featuring in the exam papers more in CBSC compared to ISC, but even ISC is catching up. So, these numericals, I would suggest, are an area where you should give some importance. Now, for those of you who are aiming to, ace the subject, then there is definitely no way that you lose out marks over there. And as I again tell you, that the mathematics is not difficult. It is not that you get a very complicated calculation. The numericals in economics are again trying to test your concepts. So the plus minus addition, those are not going to be very technical, critical. That's going to be simple. But the concept. So when you're studying national income, when you're doing elasticity, when you're doing government budget, those specific terms, what is a fiscal deficit, what is a revenue deficit, so when does that increase, that's what is required. What will you put under which method of calculating the national income, that is what is going to get tested. So if you've practiced, I'm sure you are feeling comfortable and confident in that. For those of you who for whom maths is a dreaded area, my suggestion would be do the past papers, look at those, attempt the ones that are simpler. You will be able to do it because this is not mathematics. This is just an application of your concepts. Diagrams play an essential role in economics. So, for diagrams, as I say always, the diagrams are not to decorate your question answer script, they are an integral part of your answer. So, if you're using diagrams, please refer to those diagrams in your answers. And labeling, shifts, movements through arrows, all of that is important. So I think that would be kind of, I can of course go on talking, but we have a time limit. So I would just want to say that, and to end, before I end, I would want children, you all must remember the quotation, the famous quotation that Swami Vivekananda said, that education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. So you all have it in you. It is sin if you feel that you are weak. You are not. You are under stress. Believe in yourselves. Take the small steps. Look at the progress that you are making each day. And that is what matters. And that is what is important right now. What's going to happen to life beyond exams? If we have time, we can come back to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Anusha ma'am. I mean, yes, I think this is not only important for the current students, but it is equally important for all who will be appearing in some exam or the other. So that was really, really nice, and I'm sure all our other students have gained, benefited from these discussions. May I request Deepa madam? Deepa ma'am is the principal of GD Public School, Coimbatore. It's one of the most renowned schools in that part of the country. And then we have Jais ma'am, from Advaita International School, another important and very known school in the southern part of the country. So over to Deepa ma'am.
Um, Thank you, Professor Thakur. Good evening, everyone, and good evening, students who have joined us this evening. At the outset, wish you the very best for your upcoming examinations. It is natural for students to have a sense of overwhelm as they think about the approaching exams. This starts in a very small way once the dates are released, and then they sort of lull themselves into believing that we still have time, which is natural, because then too many things come up. We have our revision tests. Children will be getting ready for their mock practicals and the final practicals. And this is the time, I would say an apt time that VSEP has chosen for this discussion, because most of the schools would have done with their practicals, and then it is time to move on to focusing much more on the theory paper. So what I sense from my students, and possibly the scenario is the same across schools, is this sense of an overwhelm that now we are into the theory paper and God knows how we are going to do it. So at the outset, as the previous speakers said, it is not something that defines you, the result, or the way you perform in the examination. It is more a way of knowing how much you have learned over the years. Not only this year, learning is incremental, and over the years, whatever concepts that you have learned, revised, and you have internalized, this is just an opportunity for testing what you have learned and how well you have learned that. And two things I wish to say to come out of this sense of being pressurized or stressed in terms of preparation. One is to be mindful. Our body, I believe, is the greatest indicator of stress. Even now, if we look at ourselves, the way we sit, there are certain muscle groups which get contracted, and then we feel that stress in our body. And because there is this intimate connection between mind and body, that stress is perceived in the mind and vice versa. So being mindful and practicing some kind of relaxation techniques, could be deep breathing, belly breathing, or in terms of progressive muscle relaxation, just standing up and then going for a walk. If you have been sitting and learning for some time, the learning itself may or may not be stressful, but sitting for a long while can be stressful in itself. Maintaining good posture, keeping oneself hydrated, having balanced meals. And I know it is a bit controversial, but studies say that vegetarian meals have a better way of putting you in the right mood for study, and uses up less energy for its digestion. The energy can be very well diverted to your brain for your studies, and keeping up with whatever you have learned to refresh your memory and then keep it sharp. So that is one part of it. On the day of the exam, as the previous speaker spoke, it is natural for us to compare notes. I have learned this, what have you learned? Or I have learned it this way, what is your take on it? So it would be better if we stop comparing. But at the same time, there are also children who say that those last minute brushing up helps. So it is really up to the person. If I'm a student and if I'm likely to be stressed, if I do this sort of last minute learning with my friends, then I should keep away from it. And if I feel that I have always benefited down the years, this last minute exchange of notes or tidbits of information, maybe values, tips, whatever it is. So that is up to the student to decide, and I'm sure 12th graders have that that experience and the maturity to decide that for themselves. On the day of the exam, being prepared is key, and the previous day of the exam, the previous evening is when that preparation actually happens, not on the day of the exam. So keeping everything intact. This may sound very basic, but everything adds up when you are getting ready, especially if it is the first exam that students take up naturally that no, feeling of butterflies in the stomach is very natural. So we need to do all that is possible for us to mitigate it as much as possible so that we are in the best frame of mind when we go to sleep. A good night's sleep will do wonders, and the next morning you wake up refreshed, and a calm mind after a good night's sleep is the best preparation ever. So that is one thing. And yeah, already I know Mrs. Banerjee has spoken about how to go through the reading part, not to spend too much time on actually reading the question paper, because whatever is printed there is there. The question paper and the questions asked there is not going to change just because you have not read it through. So, as a teacher of English, I would say, I would agree with her that no, the 15 minutes of reading time that we get, I'm talking about especially CBSE grade 12 English paper. There are passages. At times, these passages can be tricky. I'm talking about section A, reading comprehension. So, if the language of the passage is difficult, or the questions which are asked no, after the passage seems to be a little difficult to comprehend, then the best use of those 15 minutes would be to focus on one passage and then give it their best. Try reading it multiple times, correlate that with the question, what is being asked? Where do I get this information? Because these days, over the past couple of years, CBSE has changed the pattern of asking questions. It is more competency oriented. Earlier, we could read the question and then go back to the passage and then find out where the answer was exactly. And children could invariably copy from there as well. These days, it is not possible. It is more inferential, it is more extrapolatory, and they need to be able to understand the sense of what the passage says to be able to answer the question well. And very often, what children say is they spend a lot of time reading and understanding the question rather than writing the answer. And then there is a sense of being rushed to complete the paper and so on. So the best use of the 15 minutes of reading time would be to focus on one or both the passages, depending on their difficulty level and one's own sense of comprehension also. Competency in comprehension differs from person to person, depends on vocabulary, depends on how the sentence structure is understood and interpreted. So all those things. And it is also worth the time to read the question well once or twice before answering, because even multiple choice questions can have very confusing options. We are not talking about the two distractors. If there are four options, we know obviously that two cannot be the answers, right? I'm talking about the other two. They are so close as to what can be the right answer that children often find it difficult to spot the right answer. So those are the things. When it comes to writing, as far as CBSE or any board is concerned, I would say preparing a very short mind map is a good way to go, because what happens is I'm sorry to deviate, but this is just a quick tip on how the time that is allotted and the marks that are allotted for each question correlates. I tell my children, if a question is worth 5 marks, you have a longer composition worth 5 marks, 10 minutes is all that you get to write. If you stretch it to say about 12 to 15 minutes, maybe you can still make it, you can still answer the paper, but that will take away from the precious time that you get at the end to revise your paper before submission. So it's always better to have a well planned answer and then start writing, rather than to start writing as soon as you read the question, because I have a feeling, okay, I know much about this, so let me just start right away. I'm in right earnest and I start writing, and then halfway through the answer I understand, my god, my introduction was not that very good, or I could have brought this point forward, or I could have reorganized my points in a different way for better impact. This could be true of questions related to debate, article, and such questions where the way you write your points, you organize your ideas also become important, much more than the points that you write. So those things, small things, and it is not a waste of time. If you take about half a minute or 1 minute to prepare a quick mind map, you can just jot it down. And if you do it in pencil or if you do it in one corner, the examiner is not going to penalize you, even if your mind map is not that very impressive. You can always add on to that. You can always improvise that as you write your answer, but preparing that initial mind map will give you the clarity that yes, I'm including whatever I wanted to include. So that is one tip that I always give my children. And I feel that their answers have better clarity when they do that. So I think that is something that can be adopted. Another thing is to be mindful of the long answer questions which are asked in literature. Earlier, we used to have direct questions based on plot or characterization or theme. But these days, the questions are asked differently. Often there is a comparison between two pieces of literature, two characters, two plots or themes. There are questions related to points of view from one character to another. There are different ways in which the answers are asked to be structured, like you have a dialogue between one character from a particular story conversing with another character from another story. The theme of the story might compare with each other favorably, or they might be in contrast with each other. So that is also possible. And you have from the point of view of a character, a speech that can be delivered. So you need to know the language of a speech, how it has to be delivered from the point of view of that particular character. So that becomes important. You are not the person who is delivering the speech. You need to get into the character of that particular person to be able to make it effective. What would that person say? How would he or she word it? What is that person's nature? Is it empathetic? Is it very aggressive? Is it emotional? Or what, if it is emotional, what kind of emotion would creep into that speech? So all those things we need to be mindful for the answer to be very, very effective. So that is one. And last, I would say, as we revise, literature is a big part when it comes to CBSE, worth 40 marks. So as children go through the lessons, no matter how many times they have written exams based on those lessons, it is always good to either read through the lesson if they have the time and the patience for that, or to reconstruct the story in their minds, sequencing the story. Okay, these are the characters, this is the setting, and this is the background to the story, and these are the characters, this is what happens, point wise, like first this happens, after that this happens. This is important because the questions no longer test their recall of those stories. It is assumed that the child knows the story in and out to be able to answer any kind of extrapolatory questions which are asked based on those stories. So it is very important for the child not to go wrong in terms of the facts of the story or the lesson. This is especially true of non-fictional lessons. In terms of poetry, poetic devices which are used. Do I understand what is that poetic device and why it is that poetic device that is very effective there? Because such questions are also asked. So these are a couple of things that I wanted to touch upon. If we have time, then we'll come back to other points. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Deepa ma'am. Yeah, I think Mo ma'am has something to add. You were on mute.
Yeah, because I came on first, and thank you very much, ma'am. I mean, you've touched upon a few very, very important points that I also wanted to, but I couldn't come to the literature part when I had started. It's for ISC students also. It's very, very, like ma'am said, it's very important that they read the text. It's very important that they know their text inside out. Like Onishwa ma'am and ma'am right now said, the question paper format, both for CBSE and ISE, is competency focused and assertion and reasoning based. So rote learning will not suffice. You have to read. Your conception will have to be, like for economics also, ma'am said, your concept will have to be clear. You'll have to know the terms. And it's the same with our English also, especially figures of speech. They have to know, you need to know what it is. Just knowing that this is a metaphor will not suffice, because it may come as one of the MCQ, and the MCQ, like ma'am said, the distractors are going to be extremely distracting. They're going to be so close that it'll become, very difficult for you to decide. And for you to decide right, you have to be very confident about your text. You have to know your text inside out, understand the concepts inside out. I'm sure we'll come to, like ma'am said,
Yeah.
we'll go into greater lengths once we.
Sure. Sure. Thanks, ma'am, for adding those views. Uh, may I request Jais, ma'am? She is the principal of the Advaita International School, Tirupur, and she has a varied background. When we were discussing, very interesting discussion we had over phone while we were discussing about this slot. So, ma'am, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So we really highly appreciate the initiative that was taken by VCP in organizing this event at the time when children really require this kind of a feedback from educators. It is the need of the hour. And thank you so much for inviting me to this platform and sharing the space with
Pleasure is
eminent
all ours.
educators all pan India. And I really sincerely hope the children all benefit from the session. So, since my co speakers have already spoken about how to prepare for the exams and how to present the paper, I think I will give a few tips on memorizing what you learned, how to retain what you learned in your memory. Me being basically a biology teacher, I think I will give you a little bit of insight into this. So, actually, if memorization strategies are there, which increases the capacity as well as the speed with which the brain processes information. So you need to understand that well and let it be across any board or whatever subject you're learning. You need to remember and retain what you learned. So the first thing I would say is it is moving whatever text you have learned or learned material from your short term memory into your long term memory. So the moment you read something for the very first time, it goes into your short term memory, which is located in one part of the brain, which is called hippocampus. So it stays there. There's a set of neurons which processes this memory and it stays there. But unfortunately, it only remains there for a period of 20 minutes. That is all. And beyond that, you will not be able to recollect what you've studied. So the first thing is you need to move whatever you studied from your short term memory into your long term memory. And long term memory is located in a different part of the brain, which is called neocortex. So you need to move that. Now, how do you do this? So this can be done by repeatedly learning, revisiting what you've learned again and again, writing and learning what you are learning. This will help you to transfer material from your short term memory into your long term memory. Once it is stored there, it becomes permanent. I remember what I learned in 10th standard. Few things I do remember even now. So maybe it is all there in my long term memory, which enable me to recollect at any time. There is another technique which is called the peg method. Now, peg is nothing but, you can imagine, is a clip that you use on a cloth line maybe to hold the clothes in place, that it doesn't fly off. That's called a peg. So the same thing applies here. You can use a peg to clip whatever you have studied on into your brain and you don't lose track of it. So that is called a peg method. So how do you do this is by pairing something that is very familiar to you with something that is unfamiliar and abstract, which you need to learn from a text. So you pair these two together, it helps you to, that's a peg. So using this peg, you will be able to remember. For example, like in history, if you say, you want to remember when the United States Constitution was formulated, or when George Washington became the first president, it was in the year 1789. So, how do you remember 1789? You can just do this 1 plus 7 is 8, and after 8, the next number is 9. So, whichever way you feel you can remember it better, that would be applicable. Even maybe you want to remember a timeline, the different dates in history. What you can do is maybe related to your birth date, or maybe to your parents or your grandparents, which helps you. These are called the pegs, which helps you to remember. So there is another method which is called acronym. So acronym means a single word which you formulate using certain words which you need to remember in sequence. I will tell you as an example. In biology, if you need to learn about the different stages of mitosis, it has to be said in that same sequence. It has to be interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase, and that is a sequence. So if you need to remember the sequence, you just need to take the first letter from each of these words and form a word by itself, which is called an acronym. So you can form an acronym called IPMAT. I stands for interface, P stands for prophase, M for metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. So you just need to remember IPMAT, and that's it. So this is an acronym method of remembering things. You can also do something called a chunking method. In chunking method, you put certain things that you need to remember into blocks, into compartments. See, suppose you want to remember the names of scientists and their contribution, you can just put it together in an alphabetical order. Maybe under A, you can have Albert Einstein, Aristotle. Under C, you can have Carlos Linnaeus, you can have Charles Darwin, and maybe in brackets, whatever their contribution was. Charles Darwin, theory of natural selection, and Carlos Linnaeus, father of systematic botany, in brackets. If you have this kind of planning, even that would be very, very effective. Another thing which you can do is maybe it's a mathematical formula that you need to remember, or in chemistry an equation. You can just write it as the lyrics of a song that you are familiar with, and you can just sing it to the tune of that song. So this way, long-term memory loves to process music, and that can be immediately embedded into your long-term memory. One other thing would be using graphic organizers, like you say, mind maps, divergent maps, convergent maps. So this is a visual memorization technique. So I feel these are all age-old practices which we have been following in time, and now it's all gone out because children don't ever feel the necessity to remember what they have studied and the way they study also must be very, very important. Along with this, I would also add one more thing. That is, when children are studying, it is preferable that they make short notes on whatever they study. Many a time, my students have told me that during the time of exams, when they forget something, it is easier to remember what they have written in their own handwriting in the notes that they prepared more than the printed textual matter that is there. So this is something great. And you give a little color code if you want. If it's like biology, you want to draw diagrams, you give a blue color here or a red color there. And during times of exams, you'll be remembering what was it that I marked in blue, what was it that I marked in red. It comes back to your mind much more faster. So this is something I really want to tell you about this, all the children. And one more thing, which I've been noticing is now at school, we give a number of tests. We do give, like unit tests are there, cycle tests are there, revision tests are there. So when these test papers, corrected answer scripts are returned to the students, many a time I see the students crushing these answer scripts and throwing it in the dustbin. The reason being, they are not satisfied with the marks they got, or maybe out of fear of taking it home and showing to their parents. I want to tell all the students this is not the idea at all. It is not to demoralize you or to make you feel that you are not performing well. It is just you don't need to consider the marks. That's not important. You need to go through your corrected answer script. I always tell my students the moment you receive your corrected answer scripts, attach a sheet, a few papers to that answer script and write down the corrections of the mistakes that you have made. Because many a time you would notice that the mistakes, if you do not revisit those mistakes in your answer scripts, you tend to make the same mistakes again. So there is no point in giving assessment or regular tests at all if there is no purpose. So this is what all children should understand. There is a purpose for assessments, and you should work on it in a strategic way so that it will give you a more impetus and a better way to write your exams. And so this is what I would like to share. And all the best, children, for your forthcoming exams. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I wish we had teachers like you when we were in school and we had those tips kind of all those informations with us. But nonetheless, the whole idea of this session is to help the students beyond all commercials, beyond all kind of activities that we at VSEP we try to do, like the Vidmahe essay competition that we are conducting. Just to add, before we open the floor, we are also starting one initiative called Gurukul Samvad, with and the whole idea of this Gurukul Samvad is, as in my inaugural note, I have said that there are a lot of stories which are unheard, unsung, but important is all the stories are equally significant. So the success stories, the experiences. So at VSEP we publish a newsletter every month. So extending one more section in that newsletter, we are starting the Gurukul Samvad, wherein we'll be approaching principals across or teachers across the country and request them to share their thoughts, whatever academic, non-academic, what they wanted to say, share their experiences. Because I personally, while doing my thesis, etc., I realized that, of course, the subjects may be same, the curriculum may be same, but the kind of society, culture, different everywhere. So maybe each one has a different experience to share, but hardly we reach out to them and listen to those stories, and those are very interesting. So to acknowledge those stories, to learn from them, to share those experiences, we are trying the Gurukul. We are trying to start the Gurukul Samvad portion of in our newsletter, and maybe at the end of the year when we have ample collection of those, let me use the word stories, those short stories. As Rabindranath Tagore says that, gives a very good explanation about short stories. So let me call them the short stories. So once we have a collection of those short stories from the teachers, from the principals specifically, we will publish them online, offline, whatever, depending on the resources that we have. But yes, we are trying to initiate this soon. So I request all of you to kindly support us and spread the news and help us create a collective intellectual platform all together. So let me open the floor for discussion and for questions. Yes, who would like to, if there are some questions, please shoot your questions. uh, it may be general, it may be subject specific, whatever you feel like. And I also have certain questions with me, so we all together uh, will participate in this Q&A session. Yes, would like to? Yes. Okay, so let me initiate the process. Let me start the ice breaking. So this is a question to all of you. If you want to share one golden rule for students preparing for their final exams in this last few weeks, one golden rule, what would be? What would you suggest? I mean, this is open to all of you. Anyone can answer. All of you can answer.
May I go at it, sir, first?
Yes, yes, yes.
The first thing I would suggest is um, not to take up everything at the same time. It is true that every paper is important. Um, Whichever board we are talking about, there are days in between exams, and it is not that the child has to learn everything at one go in a day and then feel that I'm not reaching anywhere and stop out of frustration or no, give up or being stressed to a point where nothing enters my mind is the ultimate conclusion. There is time, even now, is one thing that I would like to say. There is time, but we need to make use of that time effectively. As many of the eminent speakers have said, there are strategies. We have our own, the time that we feel that we can spend at one go. Maybe some of us need frequent breaks. Maybe some of us need an extended learning time to get into the flow of learning. Whatever strategy, whatever style we have, there is still time, is what I would like to tell the students.
Fine. Uh, anything else?
I think being systematic and structuring the day is very, very important.
Right.
So planning is everything, is according to me. So you plan the day ahead as to what you're going to do the next day and make sure it gets done.
Padmaja ma'am, anything specific for the commerce students? I see that you have a commerce background, so if you'd like to add something.
Yeah, so commerce basically it's got a lot of stories into it, right? You can start writing something and you can keep going on and on and on, right? You can keep beating around the bush. That's very common in commerce papers. So according to me, I think you'll have to not generalize, be very specific about what you're saying. You have one subheading, and I mean, when you have a question, you have a subheading and make sure that you answer the question properly. Be precise with your answer and underline. I believe in underlining, right? And if there are any theories in it, specify which theorist told that theory. So it'll add one added weightage. And also wherever this possible, you can give real life examples that will tell the examiner that you've actually understood what you've learned.
I, I
I
think
Yeah.
there is a question. I would also just want to add to what ma'am said, that, and also, like, at this point of time, it's very important that they plan and strategize. And like ma'am had said, that they go on and on and on. You cannot do that. Okay, after you're done with reading, there is this, how would you go about, you have this much of information, okay, about this character or about this drama or about this poem. I have this much of information. If I have to address a 5 marker, what are the most important points that should go into that? The same question can come as a 10 marker. When it comes as a 10 marker, how am I going to handle this same topic, right? And there will have to be obviously textual references, which will have to follow the chronological order, something that ma'am had already talked about. You have to read your lesson such that you know the order of the events that happen, or the flow of the idea or the concept. I think there is a question in the chat box already. If anybody, that is, whether we can help them on how to address the paper according to different difficulty levels. I think we've been talking about how they can handle the paper. That, I think, that is the primary thought that is there in their mind at this point of time.
I have one specific question to Anushwa ma'am. Ma'am, yeah, you come from a international school, and I'm sure there are certain things how you differentiate yourselves compared to other schools. I mean, so at least in terms of nomenclature, it's there. I've seen, and I personally visited your school and seen things. So I would like to understand from you that beyond the exam scores, what key life skills should students start developing at this stage to prepare for the world beyond school? Yeah.
Thank you for the question. I think that one life skill that I would want to say is they need to become more resilient, because in today's, particularly in the present context, India is one of the leading countries in the number of youth population that we have. As much as that is a huge resource and a strength for the country, it also means that the competition which the youth is going to face is going to be immense in the next few years to come. Is the Western world going into more recession? We can see that there are a lot of people coming back to India, looking at India for jobs and for career. So it is very important for every child to understand that a failure does not mean an end. A failure is an experience from which you learn and you become stronger. Life is not all about success stories. Life is not all about being able to get what you wish for, but it is about learning to become more strong and be able to, face the challenges that come to us. So I think that is something I would definitely want the youth of today to be conscious about as they step out from the schools into the world outside. And I would also want to say that immediately, marks are definitely important. I can't say that marks are not important, because marks get you to the next place that you want to go to. But it is ultimately, I feel, the skills which matter. So it is very important for the children to try and develop these skills of public speaking, skills of communication, skills of being adaptable to a situation, not to be, rigid in what you have learned or what you have seen, because the world around you may be very, very different. So it's a global world. I mean, the barriers are not there. You are moving from one state to the other within the country, you're moving outside the country. There are a lot of things to learn everywhere. So have that open mind and be ready to absorb whatever you learn. And what you want to take and not take, that's your decision, but absorb it first. That would be my take on your question.
Thanks, ma'am. Uh, I have one question for Deepa, ma'am. Ma'am, as academicians or as students at some time, we have seen that the parents and teachers played a very key role in the students' academic journey. No doubt about it. I mean, so what can they do differently to better support the students during their crucial phase, parents and teacher, or maybe parents in particular?
Uh, yes, sir. A very, very valid question. And beyond being obviously supportive and no, not adding to the pressure of the child, which parents do not do intentionally. But these days, we also say that parents are in much no, uh, more peer pressure than students are. So somewhere there is a feeling that a good grade or a good score in grade 12 is going to secure the future of their child. And naturally, expectations are high once the child reaches grade 12. It is natural and to an extent inevitable. But I feel, as ma'am spoke about resilience, resilience is required for parents as well. Uh, a poor score in a revision test or a pre-board examination does not spell low mark for the child, or it does not spell doom to the child. So every time parents point out that you have scored this much, of course, it is done out of affection, it is done out of concern. That adds to the pressure of the child. So I think it is very important to have a conversation with the child, maintain as normal a family atmosphere as possible. At times, I have seen the whole family going into a huddle because the eldest child is going to write his or her examination. Stability at the home front, I feel, will take away a lot of pressure from the child. Normal family routines, maybe a visit, to a favorite place, an evening out for an ice cream, if not an elaborate dinner. So these are small things, but goes a long way in telling the child indirectly that, come on, we are with you. No, we are in this together, and you will weather the storm. So I think that is one thing, rather than feeling that pressure indirectly, which is also, as we said, inevitable, for the parent to be concerned, for the parent to want the child to do the best. But there has to be a different way of going about it from the parent's point of view. And many parents are mindful of that. I mean, they are keeping their stress and their tension levels below a certain point, just so that the child feels comfortable. And that is something that has to be really appreciated.
Thank you, ma'am. My last question to both Jais ma'am and Padmaja ma'am. Uh, uh, so, uh, uh, you know, if you could share just one piece of advice that has helped students succeed in your years of experience, what would that be? Just one piece of advice, that has helped students succeed in your years of experience. What would that be?
Yes, thank you, sir. I do not feel that 12th standard board exams is needed, maybe, but that is not the be all and end all of anything. What I feel is the child needs to better himself at every point of time, and what happens to him in future depends on how he plans his next course of action. That kind of peer group who supports him, parents who support him, and in case he wants to go further in his career after 12th standard, what is the course that he would like to take? This is something very important. So, in many a time, it's the parents who pressurize them or the peer who pressurizes them to take a particular course. Even when we come to 12th standard, children don't have an aptitude for science, but they would like to take up science because their parents force them. So, I think the basic thing is to listen to children, to talk to them, and to really understand what they need to take up and what is the future that they expect that they should become. So this is something I think is very, very important. And another thing is, please have a very de-stressed approach to exams. Exams is not everything. And just don't relax, have a positive attitude. It is just a accumulation of all the assessments that you've done and nothing more than that. So it's nothing. Once you reach college, the children lose this kind of pressure. It's only in 12th standard where they have this immense pressure on them from parents and everybody. Once they surpass this stage, everything seems to be okay. I mean, even if you don't get through semesters, it's fine. And there are so many cases where children commit suicide because they didn't get marks enough to get in maybe for medicine or engineering. Now, this is my take home. My advice to all of you is that is not the end of everything. Every profession has got its own goodness. Something is there for each one of you. Go and pursue what is your passion, and that's what is most important. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Padmaja ma'am.
So I feel that every child should, like how ma'am said, they should have one hobby. It could be anything. It could be like playing a sport or dancing or, anything that they like. Each child likes to do some cultural activity, cultural like dancing or sport or whatever. And usually I see that, parents or the child himself stops playing the sport when they come into grade 9. Till grade 9 they are all over the place. They go for dance classes, they go for music classes, they go for this class, that class. And once they come into grade 9, everything stops, right? And I have actually personally seen that children who stop all of these activities, actually the marks come down. I feel that playing a sport or doing a dance or something like that actually energizes them and gives them that feel good, that hormone, the feel good hormone comes into them, and they feel energized through the day. I think that is something they have to follow, right? And like ma'am said, their college. So I feel that if they are going to pursue this passion of theirs, if they're going to dance, that's going to be like a stress buster for them, and they can do whatever they are doing in much much better ways. So that is one advice that I think will work.
Thank you, ma'am. Uh, just to add, of course, we will be the whole discussion, etc., will be uploaded in social media and all, wherein I'm sure that people who could not participate for whatever reason today, it's not about today's participation, but the whole idea is to bring all those thoughts together in one platform and disseminate. So I'm sure students will benefit from that in some way or the other. They will have the chance to rewind and listen to those things. Before I move to the concluding note, may I request Anushka ma'am, Mo ma'am, or Deepa ma'am to share some anything that they feel like, any observations, anything that they feel like before we conclude formally.
Everything, I mean, we have discussed a lot of very, very important issues and touched upon a lot of things. But I would just, going back to what I said, I would want the children at this point in time, since it's just before examinations, I would just want to tell the children to have faith, to have this belief in themselves that they have the power to make it happen. And they have everything inside them. Their parents are supporting them. I would urge them to be around with people who give them positive vibes, not avoid people with whom they feel, competitive spirit, or they feel negative, or they feel pulled down. For the few 15 days that's left, surround yourselves with people who are encouraging you, people who are supporting you, and have faith in your abilities, have faith in the work that you have done, and all will be fine. As one of our speakers has said, that there is a place for you in this world, and you will do meaningful work if you really want to do it. So, all the best.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Like ma'am said, I mean, at this point of time, I think you need to set short term targets for yourself, and do not worry about what you're going to do with the question paper, what is going to happen if things go wrong. That is not in your hands. Your priority now is to prepare. So just study, keep your head cool and study. It said that you need to make the seconds. We see the seconds hand move. Okay, and if you take care of these little things, you know that the our hand will move. We don't see it move, but we know that it will if we take care of the seconds. Okay, so do the little things that you need to do. The larger things will take care of themselves.
Deepa ma'am, anything you want to add?
Um, Yeah, as a concluding thought, we have said this many times, and at this point of time, it is probably difficult for children to imagine a life beyond their examinations. It is natural to feel so, and at times that leads to a feeling of not knowing what to do, where to go, and all that. Small wins always help, is what I feel. Incremental wins. It could be revising a topic. It could be just going through your revision questions and how well you have answered them. It is not that you need to focus only on those questions where no, you probably did not score well. Another tip that I would like to give is all boards release their sample question papers and answer key. Children very often go through the sample question papers. It is equally important to go through the answer key, because that tells the student the key points. There are questions. Again, it is very technical in terms of CBSE across subjects, and I believe IC also must have a similar mechanism where we have the answer key, and the student is told exactly how his or her answers are marked. For a partly correct answer, whether credit will be given or will not be given. Where do you score half a mark? In the larger scheme of things, this might look like, okay, half a mark, what is it going to be like? What percentage is it going to make, or what difference will it make? But all these little things add up. So it is important to go through the answer key, and then compare that with what they have written. Have I been clear enough in my answers? Did I feel that I have written a lot? Many a time, children ask me, how much should we write? And I tell them it is not about how much you should write. It is about how deep your answers need to be. If you have 3 points and you have written in 3 or 5 sentences, it's more than enough. It's not that you need to write 3 pages for that. All right. So it is about the depth of your answer more than the length of your answer. So revising the answer key or the marking scheme will give them a fairly good idea of what kind of answer is expected, and that will bring in better clarity to their answers, and in turn it will translate into better marks as well.
Thank you, Deepa ma'am. Can't agree more. How much should we write? That's a very common question that we listen even today. Nonetheless, so as we come to the close of this insightful and enriching session, I extend my deepest gratitude to all our distinguished speakers for their invaluable time, wisdom, and guidance. Trust me, your words have not only provided practical strategies for exam preparation, but have also instilled confidence and motivation in the students as they embark on this crucial journey. Uh, so, and of course, heartfelt thank you to my colleagues at Vinaya Commission School of Economics and Public Policy for organizing this initiative as a part of their our continued commitment to holistic education beyond academics. I have always believed, and I strongly believe, that platforms like this reaffirm the power of mentorship and collective guidance in shaping the future of young minds. So it's not about the numbers, it's not about uh, the crowd that we could address or we succeeded to address. It's more about nurturing of the ideas, nurturing of the words, nurturing of the thoughts, and gradually it will spread someday. So as academicians, we can only keep nurturing our thoughts and ideas. So thanks to all of you, all the principals, all the academicians, everyone who participated today. uh, uh, and lastly, I extend my gratitude to the students, the teachers, the parents, etc., who has helped us at different point in time to do certain things, to take forward certain initiatives. So, wishing all the students the very best for their exam and beyond. Thank you and have a wonderful day ahead. Thanks everyone for participating. Have a nice
Thank
evening.
you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.